Mr. Palmer, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we've had a lot of talk about the prospects of a successful project and looking back and looking forward. I'm going to do that right now on the project because I appreciate all the rah-rah that's going on here, but it really is not, in my opinion, the purpose of the hearing is to try to determine what happened and how we can prevent this from happening in the future. So, Administrator Bridenstine, I'm going to ask you this, and Mr. Young, you can jump in, but I don't want long answers because I've got a lot of questions, and if I have to, I'll stick around and do a second round. But who was responsible for the design on the front end? Was that NASA or Northrop?
NASA.
Okay, who was responsible for the estimating on the cost side?
We receive proposals, and then we make determinations based on those proposals.
So you had a combination of NASA doing the design, Northrop Grumman evaluating the design, presenting a proposal that told you $500 million.
We ultimately, NASA is responsible for generating the requirements and the specifications.
Did anyone take into account the feasibility of the project at the time to determine, first of all, was the project feasible and was the cost in line with the feasibility of the project?
Yes.
But you still took, it's 2018, 22 years later, you still don't have it done, and it's 19 times the initial estimate. How is that possible?
Again, going back in time, the specifications changed. We determined.
I understand that.
Sure.
But, you know, I worked for 2 international engineering companies before I started the think tank, and we used to joke at one of them in particular that there's never time to do it right, but there's always time to do it over. That's bad for everybody. And when you do a cost-plus contract and somebody else is paying the cost, the taxpayers, I just see it time and time again, whether it's military contracts, whether it's NASA, that there are a number of things that happen. They get concerned that they won't get the funding from Congress, so they start a project before it's ripe. And then you have cost overruns. There's a NASA project right now, I think, that within 6 or 8 months, it was 50% cost overrun. And then you have things like this. So initial estimate was $500 million. You're with the launch cost, you're going to be at what, 9.6 billion?
That's life cycle cost.
Life cycle cost. I just have to wonder if we'd gone ahead and built the project to the initial specifications and launched it, how much would we have learned from that launch that could have been applied to a second generation, a third generation?
You're absolutely right. That's a wonderful point. I agree completely.
Well, that's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking right now at a $21.5 trillion debt, and if we have another project that takes 20 years to complete, it won't get completed because we can't afford it, we'll be bankrupt. And we keep doing stuff like this, and we don't hold people accountable for doing it. The committee doesn't exercise the proper oversight. I'm sitting here wondering, after 22 years, Mr. Chairman, where's the oversight? And where was the effort to hold anybody accountable for this? And this goes on and on and on. I think what we're trying to accomplish here is breathtaking in its scope. But we can't continue to operate like this. I mean, somebody at some point should have had some oversight over this, and maybe we would have launched this 10 years ago, and we would have learned an enormous amount from it so that the money we're spending now really would have had a magnificent return. But we haven't gotten off the ground. So that's the kind of stuff that I think we've got to deal with. For NASA to be able to achieve its mission, accomplish the objectives that NASA has set for itself, we have got to rethink how we do these contracts. I'm not a big proponent of cost plus at all. I think if we did these things where we fund it up front at the design phase and at a certain percent at the next phase of construction, then you do the review, you correct the mistakes, and then you launch and you pay off after launch. I think we'd see things that cost a whole lot less, and we'd see things get off the ground a whole lot quicker. So how do you want to respond to that as the new administrator?
Well, I would say that the fundamental question is, would we do it again? And I would say that not this way, we would not. The question is, will it be worth it in the end? And we don't have an answer for that right now, but I believe it will be.
Well, I sat here and listened to you talk about your hopes, your visions for this project and NASA. And I heard one of our Democrat colleagues comment on you as the administrator, and I wonder why it took so long to confirm you. I appreciate what you're trying to do. And I want you to know that if there's any help that I can provide to you, I think I can speak for the committee as well, that we can provide to you, particularly in avoiding other project mishaps like we've had with this. I think we would be more than happy to assist in any way we can. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.